There was a beast I found one day when I was in the woods. He was small, but vicious. I could tell. He had these little, razor-sharp teeth, the ability to camouflage at will, tiny sharp claws and large wandering eyes. I took him inside. Despite it all, I thought he was cute. Looked like something worth saving, so I fed him, and I nurtured him. I named him Clancy. And he started to grow, a lot. His teeth became long and sharp. His claws became like talons. His eyes were narrow and menacing. He grew to the size of a Doberman and then grew larger than that. It started to get difficult to keep him in the house, and I'd have to let him run around in the backyard. But Clancy, or Clance as I called him, was a gentle beast. Never vicious, never threatening, other than his looks, of course. I started taking him outside for walks. I taught him to camouflage when we were outside of the house. Clance was very intelligent. He couldn't speak to me, obviously, but he just grunted and growled. However, he seemed to understand the words that I would say to him when I would train him. So I would periodically take him out for walks so he could see the neighborhood, expend some of that energy. Whatever type of creature or monster he was, it was clear to me he was built for hunting. But he just didn't seem to have that drive in him to do that, which was fine by me. It wasn't until weeks later that I would see what kind of a creature I was really dealing with. We were walking around the neighborhood a little further than usual on the fringes of the city. Clance was with me, but camouflaged as usual. When all of a sudden, across the street, I heard a commotion. I looked up and I saw two guys, obviously drunk, beating up a homeless man on the other side of the road. I was raised to not stand for that kind of thing, and before I knew what I was doing, I was yelling, "Hey!" And the two men looked over, and then they started making their way over to me. They were threatening to kill me, cut me open. They said they were going to make me regret interrupting them. Because to them, I was some guy, walking alone, trying to intervene with their drunken fun. But what they didn't realize, and what I myself forgot, was that I wasn't alone. Clance leapt into action, dropping his camouflage and leaping forward, scaring the two men, and honestly me as well. They screamed, but their screams were short-lived. Clance pounced on the first man, his jaws opening wide, revealing those razor-sharp teeth. He clamped his mouth right on the man's face like a bear trap, red mist flying everywhere as the assailant's body convulsed and spasmed as it was slowly drained of life. The other man started to run, but Clance was quick. He leapt on top of him and made short work of man number two as well. I was in shock. Adrenaline was racing through my body. I looked up and down the street to make sure that no one saw. I checked on the homeless man, and then I half whispered, half yelled, "Come on," to Clance, and we started running home. That's when I realized that Clance was even smarter than I had given him credit for. He's never attacked anyone, but he was able to discern that the intentions of those two men were bad, and so he ripped them to shreds. I reasoned that if I could somehow teach Clance right and wrong, good and evil, he could be like a tool. A tool in fighting crime, cleaning up the streets, defending the innocent. We could be, heroes. I called in sick from work the next day, but in reality I wanted to take the day to see if I could train Clance. He seemed to somehow grasp language in what I was saying, so I took it a step further. I would read him articles of terrible, terrible crimes committed by the worst possible people, and then I would instruct him, bad people eat, kill, destroy. Then I'd read him articles of kind people, helping the community, things like that. And I'd say, "Good people protect." And Clance would growl in acknowledgement. After a few days of this, I decided to take Clance for a spin, see if we could field test some of this training. I took him to a particularly rough part of town one evening. Clance was in the back seat of the truck looking out the window. I drove up and down the street looking into alleyways and glancing onto abandoned buildings until I saw the opportunity. A woman was walking down the street alone when all of a sudden I saw a man run up behind her, shove her to the ground and grab her purse. He hit her in the head really hard and started running away. I whistled to Clance as I opened the back door, and he sprung into action. I'd never seen him run that fast. It was pure hunt mode. He was on the thief in a matter of seconds, ripping into him, tearing him to shreds as he had done the two men from before. I picked up the purse, left it next to the woman who was still unconscious from the blow to the head, whistled for Chance to get into the truck, and we drove off. It was a thrill, to be honest. We were doing something good, yes, but there was this primal thrill to controlling this killing machine. I felt genuinely powerful. We soon had it down to all but a science. We would hit the roads, looking for a violent crime to be committed. I would dispatch Clance, he would take care of business, and we'd hightail it out of there. The news was attributing it to some kind of vigilante killer looking for justice. They were partially right. It's kind of crazy, but after a while, the crime rate actually started to go down. There were less violent crimes happening in and outside of the city. We did it. One time, a whole week went by without us witnessing a single violent crime being committed, which was very rare for this city. The thrill, for me anyway, was kind of dying. But then the next night we went out, and I saw a guy grab a couple of watches from a street vendor when he wasn't looking and walk away. I mean, that was stealing, right? That was a crime. The guy was a thief, a criminal. He needed to be punished. I pointed to him, whistled to Clance, and he bounded over to the man. The thief looked horrified. I can still see the fear in his eyes as this monstrous creature descended upon him with razor-sharp teeth and claws. But his fear didn't last long. Clance tore through him like tissue paper. I started to feel that adrenaline again, that rush. We were doing good. I modified my standards for who was deserving of getting clanced, as I called it. Now anyone who stole something, violent offense or not, would find themselves on the wrong end of Clance's teeth. Standing at the corner peddling drugs would warrant you the same fate. A few times when the crime was really low, I had Clance go after people parked in handicapped parking spaces. The neighborhood was terrified. It was only a short period of time before the streets were pretty much empty in the evenings. Everyone was afraid to leave their homes for fear of this boogeyman, as they called it, that would tear them to pieces. The news started to grasp at straws, attributing it to gang violence, gang killings, multiple serial killers. But they were wrong. This was just justice. And then one night, things changed with Clance. Clance and I were driving back from a hunt one evening. And when I was at a light, it turned green and the car behind me sped up in front of me and cut me off before I could even hit the gas. I was furious. I mean, that was reckless driving, right? That's a crime. This person's a criminal. He could kill someone driving this way. So I sped up, tailgating him. I was almost bumper to bumper with him. He slowed down and I whipped past him and stopped my truck in front of his car, blocking the road. I looked into his car. I saw this degenerate sitting in his seat, screaming at me from behind the wheel of his car. I looked at the passenger seat. His wife was sitting there. She looked terrified. In the back, I saw he had his son in the car too. Irresponsible parenting. They were all criminals by association. I pointed at the car and whistled to Clance. Within seconds, he was in the car, painting the windows red with blood from the inside. Clance's demeanor changed towards me that night. He wouldn't let me pet him or even go near him. He wouldn't listen when I told him to go outside. He started looking at me strangely, baring his teeth at me, looking at me like prey. What really started creeping me out was how he started following me quietly, stalking me around the house, like we had stalked so many people before. He's cornered me in a hallway in the house now. I tried to do something good. I tried to enact justice. I tried to teach him the difference between what was right and wrong. Or at least what I thought was right and wrong. But now, as I stare down at his narrow, hungry eyes and teeth dripping with drool, a large part of me thinks maybe he learned a little too well. However, this was not Hoffman's first encounter with the law. In August of 2000, at 20 years of age, Hoffman set fire to a townhouse in Steamboat Springs to cover up a burglary and auto theft that he committed. While no one was injured, the fire spread and ended up causing nearly $2 million worth of damage. Hoffman was sentenced to 8 years. Before the murders and the abduction of Sarah Maynard, things had not gotten better for Hoffman. He was unemployed, recently being let go as his job as a tree trimmer. His car was being repossessed, he was in financial turmoil, and his girlfriend and her young son